Thanks. Legislation to make daylight saving time permanent is expected to go before members of a U.S. House for a vote this summer with the backing of President Donald Trump. If it passed, it would allow for extra daylight in the evening, even during those long winter months. The issue is one that's led to strong opinions with people on both sides. New at 6, Chief Political Reporter Jason Zimmerman looking into this debate and similar legislation recently proposed in Wisconsin. He's live for us in the studio. Jason.
Cami, we're talking about the Sunshine Protection Act, which is gaining momentum in Congress right now after being advanced by the House Energy and Commerce Committee. That means it could soon go to the House floor for a vote. Similar bill is being debated in the U.S. Senate right now. For outdoor events like the Green Bay Farmers Market, daylight saving time is a big plus during the summer. Supporters of having extra sunlight year-round say the change would reduce traffic accidents, increase economic activity, lower crime rates, and improve overall mental health, especially among people who suffer depression. Opponents such as the American Academy of Sleep Medicine argue that permanent daylight saving time causes social jet lag as it misaligns people with the sun's natural cycle. Instead, they're calling for a change to permanent standard time, which means winters in Wisconsin would look exactly the same. Here's a sample of what people told us on the issue.
You gotta have daylight savings time, all right. And then in the fall, you get to sleep a little longer, or whatever, what is it? Spring ahead, fall back, right?
That's it.
Extra hour in the fall, I'll take it.
Everybody has the winter blues to begin with, and then if you have the winter blues and then also the darkness early, yeah, that doesn't help with that, so.
Only 2 states, Arizona, Hawaii, do not observe daylight saving time. 19 states have legislation proposed on this issue, including Wisconsin, whose bill to place us on standard time did not advance last year. Tonight at 10, I'll speak to a Fox Valley lawmaker still backing it to find out if he would support the opposite approach by Congress. Cami, back to you.